Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today's going to be another one of my individual scouting reports for the 2022 NBA draft. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Arizona center Christian Koloko. So without any further delay, let's get straight into the video. Moving on, we do have some stats to discuss regarding Christian Koloko as he is 21 years old, stands at about 7 feet 1 inch, weighs about 230 pounds, and has a 7 foot 5 inch wingspan. Very impressive physical profile for the center. I know he's a bit on the older side. However, I believe he's only been playing basketball since he was about 15, 16. So even though he is a bit on the older side, I think he definitely still has a lot more room to grow and a lot more experience to garner as he continues to grow and develop throughout his NBA career, right? And then just looking at the physical measurements alone, I mean, they're pretty impressive, and they kind of tell the story about why he was so dominant at the college level, especially on the defensive side of the floor, with just how overwhelmingly big he was, as he's one of the bigger centers in this class, right? With that 7'5" wingspan, standing at 7'1", only 230 pounds. I think that he can afford to add maybe 5, 6, 7 pounds to his frame to help him in certain areas, which we will discuss later. However, again, impressive physical profile overall. And then when we take a look at the on-court stats, this was his third season playing for the Arizona Wildcats, where he did average 12.6 points, 7.3 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 0.8 steals, 2.8 blocks, and 1.6 turnovers per game. I think the points and rebounds kind of speak for themselves, as he was, essentially a rim running big for Arizona this season. And, he was really kind of just cleaning up shots around the glass. It was a vertical spacer for this Arizona team. However, even playing within that role is still impressive for him to pretty much average almost 13 points. Rebounding numbers are pretty solid. You'll like to see that be up a little bit again. That's something that we will talk about later. However, I still think he's a good rebounder overall. I know he definitely does have he does have a negative assist to turnover ratio, with that 1.4 assists to 1.6 turnovers. However, again, he's only been playing basketball for about 5-6 years, so I think that's definitely something that will continue to grow. And again, his assists are something that we will talk about in both the strengths and weaknesses part of the video. However, the steals and blocks, I mean, he was pretty much the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. I mean, averaging nearly a steal per game as a 7'1" big, that just shows you how active he was in passing lanes. And then the 2.8 blocks per game. I mean, he led the Pac-12 in blocks, total blocks, and as well as blocks per game. So that just shows you the activity that and the presence that he was around the rim for Arizona. Again, with that 7'5" wingspan, being 7'1", all that kind of helped him, be such a dominant rim protector. And then when you take a look at his efficiency numbers, they're very solid as well. Has a 63.5% effective field goal percentage, shot 73.5% at the free throw line. Very good free throw shooter for a big. Again, something that we will talk about later. And he also shot 74% at the rim, which led the Pac-12 this previous season. So very efficient player. And yeah, Christian Koloko, impressive physical profile, impressive on-court stats this previous season. Moving on to Christian Koloko's strengths as a prospect, first up, I do want to talk about his finishing around the rim. As I talked about before in the previous segment, he's pretty much the best finisher in the Pac-12 around the rim. And as you can guess by his physical measurements, right, 7'1" with a 7'5" wingspan, he's gonna finish a lot of shots around the rim. He was pretty much a vertical spacer at all times. Arizona liked to clear out the strong side wherever the ball handler was, kind of put 3 guys on the opposite side, on the weak side, and then they would kind of have Christian Koloko just kind of run a pick and roll with that guy on the wing, elbow extended area, and Christian pretty much feasted off those plays. He's a very good vertical spacer. He has a very a wide catch radius, very big catch radius, simply because of how big he is. He doesn't have the greatest of verticals compared to like a Jalen Duren or even like a Ishmael Kamagate, but just given how big he is, he doesn't necessarily have to have an amazing vertical. You kind of just go up and get the ball wherever it is. And he's also a very efficient roll man as well, and he's efficient at the dunker spot as well. And I think he's a very efficient player. He could finish around the rim with both hands, and I think he's pretty good with teardrops and floaters as well with his right hand. Notice how I don't say his left hand, which is something that he needs to work on, and that's something that we will talk about in the next segment. Little sneak peek there. However, with his right hand, if he catches it in the short roll situations, he can finish some teardrops, some floaters. And he's not gonna hit you with like some dream shake move in the post, or in like that short roll area. However, he'll fake you out one way, hit you with a jab step, go the other way, kind of get off a floater, which is pretty impressive. And that's all with the right hand, of course. The left hand is something that we will discuss later. However, moving on to another part of his strengths, I like his screen setting on offense. He doesn't really foul too much, which is something that I've noticed that you kind of have to pay attention with a lot of these centers on with their screen setting. But he does a good job, just given how big he is. He's able to utilize his size to be to create space for his guards and ball handlers to kind of attack off of him and get. Yeah, just as soon as they attack off him, they just see space. It's just open space for them to be able to operate with. So I really like that, and I think just given how big he is, I think that's something that will again translate to the next level as well. He's a very good free throw shooter as well. The mechanics are very good. Very good. He gets high. He has a very high arc shot, gets good elevation on the shot, bends his knees at the free throw line, great extension on the shot, holds his shot. It's a very mechanically sound shot, gets the guide hand up, the shooting. I mean, Christian Koloko has a smoother form than, some of the guards and wings in this class. And again, it didn't necessarily translate to other areas of the court. However, at the free throw line, he was a very solid free throw shooter for a big. And I expect that to translate. And if Christian Koloko can be a big who can knock down free throws consistently, that's huge for his projection at the NBA level, and I'm expecting him to be a reliable free throw shooter at the NBA level. I think another strength of his is that he's a solid rebounder. I would say a very good rebounder, and I would say a contested one at that. I think he does a good job of utilizing his size to create space. He does a good job of creating space, kind of, using his arms, using his legs to kind of, maneuver people around him to kind of give himself space in order to go up and grab rebounds in traffic. And I think he does a good job of being a contested rebounder on both sides of the floor. I think he does a good job of keeping possessions alive on the offensive side of the floor while also being able to end them, as I state here, defensively, just given his size, the way he's able to just go up and get rebounds. And that's a big factor. A lot of people have been talking about how, the typical center is kind of dead. Well, we kind of saw that in this year's playoffs, right? With a team like Dallas Mavericks, they could have desperately used a player like Christian Koloko, right? So, I think that's very valuable for Christian Koloko translating to the next level. And he's also, again, an elite shot blocker, right? He's the best shot blocker in the Pac-12, one of the best defensive centers in the country this previous season. And again, this is all with his right hand. He's a very right hand dominant shot blocker. For those of you that don't know, usually centers, the same way guards tend to, favor the side of the court that, their dominant hand is on. Shot blockers or rim protectors, big men in general, will look to contest shots with their dominant hand. No surprise there, right? But I just felt like I should clarify it. So with his right hand, he's able to get shots that he shouldn't be able to, and I think he has great instincts in terms of knowing when to go up and block a shot or when to kind of stay put and you rather just try to contest the shot rather than actually blocking it. And that's something that you really like to see. And as I state here, he doesn't necessarily have to wind up, which is very impressive. Right, he's able to just go up and get the shot, and he doesn't have to, take a second to kind of like gather himself and get up. He could just go up. He could just get up right, like, he doesn't have to, take a second to wind up, which is again very impressive, and I think that will bode well for his translation to the NBA level. And what I really, really loved about Christian Koloko is that he's a great pick and roll defender. Like, he's a really good pick and roll defender. Don't get me wrong, he's definitely going to be a drop big early on in his NBA career as he gets used to the space and the speed of the game. However, Arizona used him a lot of times to just hard trap ball handlers as soon as they came off the screen. I've seen some people talk about this could be an issue for Koloko. I quite frankly, I don't see it. I mean, it was pretty much part of Arizona's scheme for Christian Koloko to come to the level of the ball screen and trap the ball handler as soon as he comes off the screen. And he was able to stop ball handlers' movements. They weren't really able to dribble around him. And in some situations, whether that be Ben Mathurin or Dalen Terry or Kirk Krisha, weren't necessarily able to get over the screen all the way. And Christian Koloko was kind of just isolated, on a ball handler, just coming at them all crazy. And usually if you're taught as a guard, if a player's coming at you crazy, that's better than a player being stationary, because if they're coming at you crazy, you kind of just hit them with the move and get by them quick, right? Well, that's not the case with Christian Koloko. Christian Koloko was able to stay and hard trap guards, come up to the level of the ball screen, and really, really stop guards' momentum, which is something that I really, really like. And I feel like, again, as he continues to grow, both mentally and physically, and he gets used to the NBA's pace and space, I think that's really part of his skill set that we could really see come to play and be a real strength of his. And again, that's not to mention that he's not a great drop coverage big, as I don't think needs to really be stated, given his statistical numbers. But I really love all of Christian Koloko's strengths. I mean, if Christian Koloko hits, we're talking about a big that can be an effective rim protector, as well as being able to switch out onto the perimeter at times, as well as be a viable free throw shooter and a vertical spacer. I mean, that we're talking about a very solid player here. So again, I really like all of Christian Koloko's strengths. Moving on to some concerns I do have regarding Christian Koloko. First up, I do want to talk about that he does have a bit of a fouling issue on the defensive side of the floor, right? There were a couple times for Arizona, even though I did previously state that he was able to come to the level of the ball screen and kind of hard trap the ball handler. There were times where the ball handler would kind of, get past him, kind of get around that outer foot of his and attack downhill. And Christian Koloko had a bad habit. It's one thing, they beat you, you can't recover. I mean, just let it go, right? But there were a number of times where Christian Koloko would kind of just not necessarily push them, but kind of, put his hands on them or try to block the shot when he just didn't have a chance, right? And that would result in and ones, or if they missed the layup, them getting to the line and Christian Koloko having an extra foul. And even though he did definitely help his fouling issue, I wouldn't say he didn't necessarily help his fouling issue. He averaged about 2.8 fouls per game this season, as well as last year. I believe it was 2.7, or maybe the other way around. But it's not necessarily that he improved with his fouling issue, more so it just stayed the same. And I think that's definitely something that he's going to have to clean up, as he's a bit too handsy at the college level. And I think, again, that's definitely something that he's definitely going to have to work on at the NBA level to be, a consistent time starter, which I do think he has the upside to be. However, another issue with him on the defense side of the floor is that I think he was pushed around a bit. I think he was a bit of a pushover in the post this season. As we saw, a primary example was against TCU, where their big men were kind of just having their way with Koloko, kind of just turning over him. And, he was, again, the hands was a big issue, kind of was riding them with that elbow, with that arm, and it was just and one city all day. And I think a lot big reason for that is he needs to establish, again, not only not use his hands as much, but establish himself in the post, really build that lower strength, and that would help him, I think, be able to handle a lot of bigs posting him up. And I think that is something, again, at the NBA level, the bigs aren't necessarily going to be posting him up, but against some of the better bigs, I think that can definitely help him in terms of staying out of foul trouble. However, moving on to the offensive side of the floor, where the biggest concern has to be that left hand. I mean, that left hand is pretty much awful. I mean, even hitting, a layup from the other side, like let's say he's on the right side of the floor or on the right post, and he kind of turns baseline and attacks and is shooting an underhand layup with the left hand. I mean, he might not even hit that. He missed a fair amount of those, and that lack of touch with that left hand also translates to a lack of touch in the post as well as in traffic with that left hand. I think he really needs to develop that left hand in order for him to, again, be a solid, a starting or potentially even a high level starter, a contributor for whatever team he ends up on, simply because, I mean, your right hand is great and everything, but you're already a rim runner. So you're already technically limited in an aspect as a player, right? Even though rim runners have their value, being only a rim runner and then not being able to use your left hand at all, I mean, right? I mean that the issues with that goes without stating, right? So I think his left hand is something that he's definitely going to have to work on. Also, I think he lacks touch pretty much everywhere else as a shooter, right? Especially from the mid range and also from behind the arc. And it's kind of weird because the touch that he displays at the free throw line just isn't present anywhere else. And I think a large part of that is because he kind of does have a little bit of a hitch when he's shooting from everywhere else. He kind of holds the ball a little bit, and it's almost kind of like he's catapulting the ball a little bit instead of just shooting it the way he does at the free throw line. However, just given his touch from the free throw line, I think it's less of a concern overall, simply because he's such a good free throw shooter for a big man that I think the shot will slowly get better and slowly translate as he develops at the NBA level. However, it's not something that you should expect to see from Christian Koloko at all. Maybe later on in his career, as the touch from the free throw line continues to expand in other areas. But don't expect Christian Koloko to be a shooter in any capacity from day one. And my final concern with Christian Koloko is that his delivery on a lot of passes isn't great. I think he's prone to forcing a lot of passes into windows that aren't necessarily there. Like he'll try to thread needles that they might have been too late. Like you can see him, the kind of seeing passes, seeing open guys cutting and whatnot, but his delivery on those passes is just a bit off right now, and I think that's a big reason why he has a negative assist to turnover ratio at this point in his basketball development. Moving on to Christian Coloco's outlook or what I believe his future in the NBA would look like. I think to start off, his initial floor, and if nothing else improves, I think he's a G League slash end of the rotation player. And I think despite the flashes that he will show in his rookie year, or again, if he never improves his entire career, as being, a potential free throw shooter, as well as, having rim running capabilities, and flashes as a rim protector, and being able to be a switchable defender, be a big man that can be used in different schemes. I think the fouling issues will definitely hamper him to start off his career. And I think that's something that he will have to learn to fix and change at the NBA level to grow into, as I state here, the median outcome and his ceiling as well. But also, I think that his raw offensive game leads to him being, seen as more of a project, and it kind of holds him back as a player, just because, again, he's just going to be a rim runner and not much else to start off his career because of the awful touch that he has with that left hand. So again, as I state, that left hand and the fouling issues really need to improve for Koloko to grow into what I believe is his median outcome, which is, a rotation caliber big slash, a decent starter, possible starter. And I think in order for him to get this, I think first off, I think at this level, this is going to be a big who is a vertical spacer as well as a solid positive impact defender. However, I think the defensive issues, and again, some of the raw offensive touch, just the raw offensive repertoire will kind of hold back Christian Koloko from really being a full-fledged quality starter at the NBA level. And again, as you guys can see here, I don't think he'll be anything more than a quality starting big, which leads me into my ceiling, which is the only path for this to happen for Christian is where the fouling issues become less of a problem over time, and him being a solid rim protector with, as I state here, some perimeter versatility, and the left-handed finishing has to improve. I think the fouling, the left and the left-hand finishing has to improve, and I think the shooting touch overall has to improve. And I think we're looking at his ceiling could realistically be a guy who's a versatile defensive piece while also being a very solid rim protector, and then on the offensive side of the floor, a guy who's with some improved touch and shooting could be, again, a versatile, again, Christian Koloko, even if he does become a decent shooter, you best want him around the rim as a vertical spacer. However, he's a guy who offers you some versatility offensively, as a vertical spacer, a guy who can, potentially shoot the ball a little bit, and is a good free throw shooter. That's a very quality starting big that, will be a very solid player. And that just screams of a playoff player, right? So I think that's Christian Koloko's ultimate high-end ceiling. Again, to just kind of wrap it up, or before we wrap it up, for some of my comparisons, I really did struggle to find, a definite comparison. However, I ended up landing on Daniel Gafford, a guy who I think is a very good vertical spacer, a guy who's kind of teased as a shooter a bit, with his free throw numbers. I kind of saw them similar in that aspect. And then on the defense side of the floor, Gafford is a very solid rim protector. However, Gafford's not as big as Christian Koloko. Gafford's about 6'9", 6'10", and Koloko's about 7'1". So Christian Koloko's maybe a taller Daniel Gafford. It turns out to be that. Again, that's the median outcome for him, right? A rotation big slash a possible starter here and there. So again, I think that's a positive. That's a decent outcome for Daniel Gafford. And again, I did have that as my median outcome for him. So all in all, I really like Christian. I think there's a lot of things to like with him. I think there's some things to dislike about him. I think there's some things that he's definitely going to have to work on. However, I like the tools. I think there's a lot of upside for him to grow. And if he does reach his ceiling, we're looking at a very solid, very capable starter. And I think depending on which organization he ends up in, I think it's very, very capable, or very, very likely that he could reach this ceiling. As I stated in my previous mock draft, I had him going in 30th to the Magic in the first round. Some other fits that I would really like for him would be Dallas. I really like him just being spoon-fed by Luka Doncic. I think he could develop into that center that Dallas desperately needs. I also really like him at 34, 33 to the Toronto Raptors. I think he could, ending up, in Masai Ujiri's just room of big men, he could really develop into being, that long-term center next to all those wings that Toronto does have. So I really, really love that fit for him overall. And, Christian Koloko is a guy who I really love as a late first round, early second round prospect. And I would absolutely love for him if he fell all the way to 41 for my New York Knicks. And that's in the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about Christian Koloko in the comments section below. Did I get it right with him? Do you guys think he's a late first, early second kind of guy? Do you guys think he's a mid first kind of guy or a mid second kind of guy? Let me know what you guys think about Christian Koloko in the comment section. Aside from that, that's in the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, please share the video with a friend. I want to keep growing the channel, keep growing the community that we have here. And again, that's in the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day and take care. Peace.